Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. My name is Maud Toussaint Como. This is the channel where we talk about fragrances and arts, and might I add also garden and and other lifestyle events, because I expand a little bit more and integrate my perfume talk with everything else that I find joyful enough to share with you. So I'm glad you're joining me here again today. I am talking about fragrances I've been wearing this summer, and that really, in a way, garden has inspired me. So I'm now in front of my pretty hydrangeas, and I couldn't be more pleased to have you join me once again. Today I am talking about flower fragrance, but more specifically flower fragrances around the tuberose note. And I have to say that I'm probably the least suspect in terms of person who would have been on a tuberose bench, but that's really how we can qualify how it turned out that I have a few tuberose fragrances. And tuberose seems to be this note that perfumers are obsessed with creating something that's memorable. It must be fun to be a perfumer and try to create with tuberose, because there's so much interpretation of it. So I'm just going to share with you all the tuberose fragrances that are in my collection and what I think about them. Again, I'll put the notes in my description box because I don't want to make the video long and go over all the notes. Most importantly, what I really want to talk about is how those fragrances make me feel. So tuberose is really a note that perfumers aspire to use, and one of the most popular interpretation of the tuberose is to make it sexy, even a little bit sexual or sensual, if you would. And I have three fragrances here where clearly the intent was right off the bat to create a very sexy fragrance, a very appealing fragrance, you know, on a woman, and fragrances that men were going to appreciate on a woman from a perspective of their sexiness. So the first one has a tons of other flowers, you know, all the usual suspect in terms of flowers that are really sexy, like ylang ylang, jasmine, gardenia, you name it, and tuberose. And that's, so the bottle comes pink. It may be difficult to find. It may be very difficult to find right now. Seriously, I had to order this in a different continent, in Europe. That's why I found it. But it must still be around if I was still able to find it not too long ago. And it has this ring which signified sexual power in women. And it's unapologetically a sexy fragrance. For a flower fragrance, this is not a baby flower. This is not an infantile or immature fragrance. It's really for a woman who really on her sense of confidence and sensuality. And it's just a very, very beautiful fragrance. I've worn this fragrance in the evening, and it was just perfect, perfect, perfect. You feel very confident in terms of your little sense of sexiness wearing this. So yeah, Vivienne Westwood, Boudoir. And of course, boudoir in French means that's the space where women used to sort of entertain their lovers and whatnot and get dressed there. So yeah, it's a great apt name for the sexiness that this perfume conveys. Boudoir by Vivienne Westwood. The second one is very simple in its presentation, but very effective in its punch and effectiveness as far as beautiful, sexy type of fragrance is concerned. And it's by Narco. And I have a full review on this fragrance. It's called Narcotic V for Narcotic Venice. And it's probably the tuberose fragrance that is in its most pure form. This fragrance is really unapologetically tuberose with some form of animalic note. And it's just pure, it's beautiful, it's light, it's, how would I say that, it's innocent and very powerful in terms of its sexual appeal at the same time. And that was the inspiration behind the whole creation of Narcotic V. And it's beautiful on spring. It shines this summer. It shined on me this summer, and I wore it to a sort of garden party, you know, in a space like we have here, and it was just the perfect fragrance. Narco Narcotic V for Narcotic Venice. And so in terms of sexiness in the tuberose, I would say this one is number one. Well, I don't want to, yeah, it's hard for me to rank them, so they're equal in terms of effect, but clearly this one is much stronger than this one. This one is more out there in its sexual appeal, but this one begins really innocent because it's so pure, but when the animalic note kicks in mixed with the tuberose, it really creates something that end up being irresistible, very irresistible. Now, third but not least, at least in my collection, in terms of tuberose fragrance that really convey sexuality and sensuality and sexiness, it's Roja Scandal. What can I say? This one is sort of soapy because it begins with other white flowers like the orange blossom. A lot of Roja's fragrances sort of begin on the top layer with the orange blossom, which kind of make them soapy. But the star of this is clearly the tuberose. So by the time you get the nice fresh opening and soapy opening, and the tuberose just works really, really well on this fragrance. Again, I have a full review on this, but the bottom line is this is a fragrance that is just beautiful, not only in presentation, but in impact and in its effect. So if someone is really looking for tuberose fragrances that are unapologetically feminine and sensual and sexy, seriously, these are the only three I have that I really would qualify as providing this type of effect. And there you have it. Glad to share that with you. I'll go a little bit faster on the other tuberose because the other one, the interpretation, I don't think that they are necessarily as sexy and sensual as the other ones. Although, so I'll say the fourth one is Carnal flower. In spite of the name Carnal, which means skin-like, chair in French, la chair, the name Carnal flower, I don't necessarily find that this fragrance is so out there in terms of being a purely sensual fragrance. And it's because it's really such a fresh and sophisticated fragrance. It's just very opulent. It's so opulent that you really want to wear this fragrance in a very sophisticated function and not just in a sexy like function. This can really go even for, I don't know if I would wear it for work, no. Maybe if you work on a boat or in a casino or something, you could, or in a very high-end hotel in the evening, you could. You know, there is a little bit of the animalic to it, but it's so green at the same time. It takes all the elements of the flowers, not just the flower part. I think that's what makes it unisex. That's what makes it very, a little bit almost unapproachable in its beauty, in its character. I mean, there isn't enough to say about Carnal flower. It's definitely, although I'm putting it fourth in the list, it could easily go first if I were going by what is the best tuberose around, because this is a tuberose that you feel very confident wearing, because of the perfect balance with everything else that it has, a little bit of the animalic and the green and the freshness of it. I could say this is a tuberose that is an interpretation of its own. You know, in terms of tuberose fragrances, that definitely goes there at the very top. I think another tuberose fragrance that is definitely way up there, I did not jump yet into buying the full bottle, and I'll try to put the full bottle there. But I've had decants of it, I've had travel size of it that I was given as a gift in event that I've attended for Tiziana Terenzi. So here, this is just a small little sample I have, and it's Atlantic. It's the latest tuberose, one of the latest tuberose fragrance around, and how can I put it? It's the most beast mode fragrance I have ever experienced in my life. But it's beast mode in the most beautiful way, in the most powerful way. I don't even know how he does it. It's as if like there's some like little magical figures that sort of spraying it all around to create the biggest sillage that exists on this planet. You know, even just opening this and smelling it without spraying it, if I put it too close to my nose, I may end up smelling it until tomorrow. I'm not kidding. Atlantide by Tiziana Terenzi is definitely the mother of all tuberose in terms of the sillage, in terms of the longevity, in terms of the drama that's around that fragrance. Not only the presentation is the most dramatic you have around, but it's also just really something else when it comes to the tuberose interpretation by a perfumer. Now the other ones are tuberose fragrances. They're a little bit less magical, although this one is Dosan, and because it has a C note to it, it feels a little bit more maybe casual tuberose. It's a little bit green and woodsy, and has a C note on top of it, so that makes it very interesting. I find it a very fun tuberose, very energized, a very energetic tuberose. That's Dosan. And of course the presentation is an artwork, just like all diptyque, most of the diptyque bottles. It's just a very magical place that it's trying to convey, probably in Indochina, where the perfumers grew up, and the ocean breeze and the sea note is just very beautiful all around, and it's a tuberose fragrance. Another interpretation of tuberose that's very fun actually is Good Girl Gone Bad by Killian. I was surprised at how nice this tuberose ended up being for me, and fun it was to wear this summer. That's very powdery and very interesting to wear to hang out with girlfriends, I find. So I've made a little dent with it hanging out with my friends around here. So yeah, that's another tuberose that I think is clean, is soapy, but it's very fun and youthful. Good Girl Gone Bad by Killian. Another tuberose that kind of made quite a bit of noise and that I got is the Tuberose Nu by Tom Ford. And I really like this one. It's totally different like than everything else. To be honest, when you're smelling it from here, it smells a little bit plasticky, synthetic-y. To me, it really worked really well as a tuberose fragrance, and I've really enjoyed it. Again, so I have a full review on this. Like when I wanted a flower fragrance that was a little bit not misbehaving, that wasn't behaving cutely, I found that this was really a nice tuberose fragrance to wear. And I think this is Bun number 9 Chinatown. Has a nice tuberose to it. Yeah, I can smell it. I can smell the tuberose. I really just love this because it smells like a nouveau riche type of tuberose, and it gives me also the vibe of like a tea house. Like you would have beautiful tea house mixed with the evening breeze. Is a beautiful interpretation of a tuberose that I've actually also enjoyed in the evening this summer. I couldn't really handle it too much in the day because it gets sweet on me somehow, but the evening it was mysterious and beautiful and interesting, I found. So that's a tuberose I've enjoyed this summer. Last but not least, these have been just a whole wide range of tuberose interpretations of fragrances that are in my collection, from, you know, the sexy type of highly feminine tuberose, as we know tuberose is known for, to masterpieces like Carnal Flower, to more fun like tuberose like Chinatown, Good Girl Gone Bad, and just unique interpretation of tuberose like, you know, this kind of sea-like note, Dosan, diptyque, and then the more very modern, a little bit more aesthetic, like cosmetically engineered tuberose like the Tom Ford one. Really interesting interpretation of the tuberose fragrances I have in my collection. So I hope you enjoy my sharing them with you. Like I was saying, these are fragrances that I felt like my garden here sort of inspired me to talk about, and my other video is going to be on green fragrances. So I thank you all for joining me this beautiful afternoon. If you like my content, I would really appreciate that you like and you subscribe and that you comment so that we can continue our conversation. All right, until next time, bye.